was happy until he overheard his friend laugh in the back. His friend said he's a loser and simp. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where everything seems to be falling apart? Well, let me tell you about my recent experience. My name is Kylie Robinson, female 26, and my husband is Brandon Brown, male 29. My husband and I met at Cardiff when I went to visit my friend Olivia, female 26, and her nana Brandon lived there with his parents. Well, his parents and my friend's nana were somehow friends, or must I say they were family friends. We dated for a year and a half, then he proposed. His parents, along with my nana, were so happy at the fact that we had actually met their hopes. I was surprised when Nana told me that she had been praying that I date Brandon because he was a good, humble, and respectful young man with a good sense of humor. I just couldn't believe Nana, but I was glad and felt blessed at the fact that she had wished and prayed for nothing but the best for me. I remember when Brandon's mom was so over the moon and busy gushing about the wedding. She actually wanted us to make her the wedding planner. It was somehow really funny to see her wanting to be hands-on like that, but Arthur didn't want her to be. So we had hired a wedding planner to take care of everything that we would need. I was focusing on having the best dress and best suit for Brandon. That's how happy I was with my wedding, and I couldn't wait for it to happen. 2 months later, we got married, and it was the happiest day of our lives. I was glad that Brandon didn't change when we got married or when we started dating. I mean, most people tend to change when they get what they want, but Brandon kept treating me like his friend and a lover. His love for me, or our love for each other, was not hidden. It was just visible to everyone to see that we were so much in love. We actually became like siblings because of the way we were free and sometimes crazy towards each other. Sure, we had our fair share of ups and downs, arguments just like any other couple, but we maintained the communication. We made sure to not go to bed while angry at one another. Another thing, we would just kiss and make up when we had been having an altercation or argument. Our intimate moments were always on a high level. I don't know if I was saying that because I loved and I still love Brandon, which is funny because I love a person who screwed me over in a most painful and unforgivable way. I think I loved our intimate moments because he was the one who broke my virginity. He was my first true lover and my first true friend. All along I had been having or finding fake friends and playing boys who only wanted me to sleep with them so that they could discard me like an old used cloth or teabag. I had my doubts about Brandon when we first started dating, but the time that we had spent getting to know each other while we were friends really helped because I got into a relationship with him, knowing what I was outing myself into. It was nothing but bliss. Time passed, I started getting bored. I mean, I am a writer and I own a publishing company, so I was always in the house because I was not working for any company but myself. Brandon was always at work and he would come back later when he had knocked off. He didn't change, you know. He was the same husband that I had fallen in love with, and my love for him kept growing each and every time when I looked at him. I loved the fact that he was very much supportive and always there for me when I needed him. I don't know what really came over me when I destroyed the only good thing I had going. A year later, I'd given birth to a very cute and beautiful baby girl. Was I not happy? I was ecstatic, but I couldn't say the same with my husband because he had wanted and hoped for a boy. So a year after our daughter was born, he became distant, going to work earlier than he used to and coming back late. Our marriage was no longer the same, and it was breaking my heart because he was very much in love and supportive during the whole pregnancy journey, but when the child was born, he stuck around for 6 months, then he started his acts. The more Brandon was acting offish and absent to our daughter and I, the more I kept having thoughts about him. He was no longer the loving, romantic, kind, and caring husband that I had married. Wasn't he the one who had been pestering me about starting our own family, building his empire and all that? But when the baby was born, he changed. And he changed for the worst, mind you. The child looked so much like him, but that didn't give him any motivation to show some love and kindness to his child. He was treating me like I was cheating on him or I had cheated on him. Time passed and I saw no change in Brandon's behavior, but it was getting worse each day. I couldn't take it anymore. It was tearing me apart because I didn't know what his problem was, and if I tried to communicate with him about it, he would say there was no problem and he loved our daughter. His words were saying something else while his actions were saying another thing, so what he was saying versus what he was doing was not colliding even a little. So I took my child to my mother's house. I was glad that my mother had fully recovered from her alcohol addiction, and he had become a mother we had always wished for, to me and my siblings, and he showed so much love to my daughter, which was another thing I was grateful for. So I left my baby girl for a full 2 months, telling my mother that I wanted to fix my marriage with Brandon and plead with him to accept that he had a chance to have a child, even if she wasn't what he had expected. But she was still his child, his blood and semen. During my efforts to fix our marriage, the man of the house didn't seem to change. Yes, he would tell me that he loved me, but what about our daughter? What he was doing to me and our daughter was slowly finishing the love I had for him. What is love exactly if you are not showing it but keep saying it like it's a chorus in your favorite song? How can a person say they love you but they can't love their own seed? It was really confusing and heartbreaking because if I were to choose between my husband and our daughter, I would definitely choose our daughter because his love that he said he had for us was not enough. In fact, it was just lousy and useless words because his actions were saying a different thing. One day he had invited his friends for a braai to celebrate his success in getting clients in Asian countries. I was proud of him and his achievements. I won't lie, he had worked very hard to get that contract and he eventually did through his hard work and dedication. So as the good wife that I was, I helped him prepare for the braai that he was hosting. He had asked me to help him because he first wanted to celebrate with his friends, then invite the family later on when the contract was confirmed and signed. I helped him with everything that he needed. My daughter was still with my mother at that time. So when his friends came, I didn't know all of his friends, I only knew a few. I got the shock of my life. One of his friends was my client back then when I was working at a strip club before I became a writer. So this friend of his used to ask me for my intimate service. He would come to the strip club for the dance, then ask me for my intimate service. He was a well-paying client at that time. I called him my regular because he would come to the club maybe twice or 3 times every week. I just couldn't believe how small the world was, and I got uncomfortable at the fact that he might tell my husband about my past with him. Another thing I wouldn't know is that he was my husband's friend because he was not at our wedding celebration. Worst part was that he had even asked for my service 2 weeks before my wedding with Brandon. They had asked me on different days, and I wouldn't have guessed that they were somehow friends. Yes, I am not proud of what I had done to my husband because he had shown me nothing but true love, and the guys had promised to give me good money and they wanted a good service before they would go on a business trip. That was what they told me. If I knew that they were my husband's friends, I wouldn't have agreed to commit adultery 2 weeks before I got married. Throughout the whole celebration, I was so uncomfortable. The lusting eyes that some of the guys were giving made me more uncomfortable. I didn't know how my ex-regular would act when they got drunk because they were drinking like it was their last time, or what he would tell Brandon. You know how some guys are. And according to what I had seen, it looked like the whole squad knew that the 2 guys were womanizers. The other one liked going to strip clubs while the other one loved sex. I say that because I had been looking and analyzing each and every one of them. Sometimes it's bad to not have friends because you end up focusing on things that do not concern you. So it was scary that the guy I had cheated with was one of my husband's friends. I was not even myself, but luckily no one noticed. About a month later, I received a call from Tom, one of Brandon's friends, the one who was my regular. I was surprised because he hadn't called me ever since the day we last saw each other before my wedding. He asked me to meet him at a certain hotel for a quick one, of which I bluntly refused and reminded him that I was no longer into that life and I was happily married. I said that to get him off my back and hoped that maybe he would get the message, even though I was not really happy. It had been quite some time since things had been tense in my matrimonial house. My husband was acting fishy, like there was something he was hiding from me. At first I had thought it was work pressure, but things got worse. He was suddenly moody. His sex drive was no longer the same. As much as he acted like he didn't love our daughter or even try to play with her, that was a small thing compared to how he was acting towards me alone. So Tom just laughed at me when I told him that I was happily married, and he told me that if I was happily married, I would have acted like a happy person when they had come to Brandon's celebratory braai. I first didn't understand what he was trying to imply, but I somehow remembered that he was the only client that knew me at my happiest, or when I was pretending to be happy. He told me to know my worth and if the battle that I was trying to win with Brandon was worth it, and how long would I keep fighting for something and someone who couldn't even steal a glance at me when they were in my house. What he was saying was true, but I couldn't give him that satisfaction just because my husband had changed on me. I still had faith that he would be back to be the person he was when we first started dating. My publishing on the other side was doing well. It was the best destruction I had. Time passed, I decided to start going out, to live a little. I had never got time to all that and enjoy my money because I had to think of the situation that I was facing at home. So I started by going to the mall to do some shopping, hoping that it would cheer me up just like all the girls who say shopping was a great therapy. But for me, it wasn't. I won't lie. My husband knew that I was the lover of affection and intimacy, but the way he was acting made me somehow feel frustrated and in so much desire for intimacy. Though I didn't want to do that to my husband because it was going to jeopardize my marriage, I couldn't hold myself anymore to the point that I would sometimes help myself. So when I went shopping, I bought a lot of lingerie, hoping that they would bring at least a small spark to my husband's eyes when he sees me wearing a sexy number. So when I got home, I prepared his favorite dish. Luckily, I had gotten my daughter a nanny because of work, and I was kind of tired of burdening my mother with my problems. My husband came back earlier than expected that day. The nanny and my daughter were at my mother's house, so I tried acting like a good wife and welcomed my husband with a kiss and asked him to go take a quick shower because we needed to talk. Luckily, he complied and did as instructed while I was left to finish up everything. I made sure to wear something sexy that would make him want to eat me in an instant. When he came back from taking a shower, he came down the stairs and asked what the occasion was and where I was going since I was wearing a dress that he had not seen before. I told him that I had wanted to spend quality time with him and tried addressing the issue that we were facing in our marriage. But the guy just dismissed my concerns and changed the topic. I asked him to at least notice me as his wife. I then tried seducing him, but he was not having it. He complained about being tired, and what surprised me that day was that he asked where Chrissy, our daughter, was. I knew he didn't ask that because he wanted to ask, but it was because he wanted to dismiss what I was trying to do and address it with him. So I told him that our daughter was at my mother's house. He just took the car keys and told me that a child shouldn't be separated from their mother because that would break the connection and the bond we had, so he was going to fetch her. I didn't really understand the sudden love he had for our daughter, but somehow my heart was happy and at ease to see him considering our daughter's feelings. I had hopes that maybe we would get through everything, but who was I fooling? He left me there with a lingerie on. He didn't even try to at least compliment or show me some affection. He just remembered that he had a daughter that he had been absent with for a year. My heart was broken and I was so thirsty and hungry for some intimacy, so I found myself calling Tom with the hope that he was available. Luckily, he had invited me to their private party because I had told him that I was bored and I needed some company. I didn't even waste any time. I just changed only the dress that I was wearing, then went to the location that Tom had sent. I didn't care if my husband would come back home and not find me. All I was thinking about was the salt and desire for affection that I had been craving for. When I got there, Tom welcomed me and introduced me as his fun girl, which came as a huge shock to me because I didn't remember forming any fun relationship with Tom, but I dismissed that, but maybe we did have a fun relationship, which happened a long time ago. So the night went on, and at that party I noticed a few of Brandon's friends. Someone suggested that we all play spin the bottle, where one would either kiss the person the bottle would be pointed to or you would have a shot of vodka. That game was fun and all. I had kissed 3 of Brandon's friends, including Tom, that night. Don't look at me like that. We were all sloshed. As the game was getting heated, someone changed it and told us to play truth or dare. I tried containing myself by choosing truths, but Tom asked if I was truly happy and sexually satisfied in my marriage. That question caught me by surprise because I didn't know how to answer, and I couldn't lie because they would see that I was lying. I was getting uncomfortable, so I changed the answer I had given them and chose dare. Tom then dared me to go to one of the rooms in the house with a guy called Kenny for 15 minutes. He looked like he had been craving for me the whole night. I was resistant at first because I didn't know what I was supposed to do in that room, but I eventually went with the guy. When we got there, the guy started touching me. Mind you, I was also tipsy, so the alcohol was playing its role on my body. So it reacted to his touch and smooth words he kept saying within a blink of an eye. I found myself going down with the guy. My mind had flushed down any thoughts of my marriage problems and my husband. I was enjoying the moment. My mind took me back to where and who I was before getting married and having a whole family. Not knowing that the room we were in actually had cameras, I was so caught up in a moment to a point that I didn't notice anything, plus the alcohol was doing its work. The game went on until late and the real fun started when everyone was dancing. I was really sloshed to the point that I found myself dancing like a stripper on top of the table. I did the dance for 3 of the guys who included Tom, Kenny, and the one that used to come to the strip club for my dance. I would see them in passing. When I did the dance for Tom, I was letting loose and cared less. Little did I know that they were actually my husband's friends. Well, I knew the 2, but I didn't know about Tom. So as I was busy dancing, I told the Tom to follow me to the private room. My stripping habits had come back on full mode, and we were all drunk, so I commanded him to follow me to the room, and he complied. When we got there, we started our little party. I danced for him and seduced him to a point that Tom started touching me, and boom. We were having an intimate moment. I was enjoying the way that he was touching me and making me feel good. I don't remember where the other guy that I called along with Tom had gone, and I didn't care, so I continued with the fun I was having with Tom. He knew what he was doing, and it felt so good. We did a lot the previous night. We were all sloshed to a point that I couldn't remember everything that had taken place in the private room, though I remembered bits of what had happened. I woke up in the morning with a very serious hangover headache. When I looked at myself, I saw that I was not wearing anything. My heart started beating, thinking of the worst and thinking of how stupid I was for putting my marriage in jeopardy. I had committed adultery, something I had vowed to myself to never do again. I was so scared, thoughts were racing in my head. I couldn't help but feel guilty of what I had done, and there was no undoing it. As I was busy panicking, Tom came into the room with a cup of coffee and painkillers to kill the hangover headache. As much as I wanted to appreciate his kind gesture, my heart and my mind didn't allow me to. It was on its own dimension and a very dark one. I just couldn't stay there anymore, so I only took the painkillers and drank them. Tom and I moved to his apartment for more privacy and intimacy. As I was chilling with Tom in his rented apartment, he went to the bathroom as the person who was going to come back sooner. So the time he went to the bathroom, we were talking about my marriage and how much I was not satisfied sexually. While Tom was in the bathroom, I received a call from Brandon, which really took me by surprise because I had thought he had forgotten about me and the fact that he had a wife, that he had more important things to do than to give his wife his full attention and lovemaking. I was on a call with Brandon, hearing him apologizing and asking me to come home because he thought I was at a friend's house. Tom got back speaking and didn't notice that I was on a call with someone. He asked me when will I stand up for myself and leave the loser that I had married, because if he knew what he was missing out, he wouldn't be that busy for his wife. Tom then called him a simp because he is so focused to please his bosses and forget about his wife, then act like a girl just because he had later realized that his wife is gone while he didn't even have time for me when I was at our marital home. He kept talking. I tried signaling him that I was on the call with someone else, but the guy just ignored me and continued telling me that I had married a shame of a husband and called him a loser again. He even said that he knew that Brandon was his friend and he loves him, but he's a loser and a simp and he needed to know that. Somehow I thought that Tom was saying all those things on purpose and he knew that I was on a call with Brandon. On the other hand, Brandon was hearing the whole thing imagine. I was just tongue-tied. I didn't know how to respond and who to respond to because on the other side, Brandon was busy asking why I had told our marital issues to my affair, who is his friend. Then Brandon, started throwing tantrums at me and telling me, well, more like demanding me to go back home because he didn't want to see me because I had chosen to be a witch that destroys marriages. Brandon was super enraged to a point that I felt like if I was near him, I don't know and can't imagine what would have happened to me. Brandon is a very private person and he doesn't want his life matters to be known by the outside world, especially his friends. So I had made the worst mistake ever for sharing my marriage predicament with Tom. You know what Arthur did was somehow a blessing in disguise. So I knew that as I was going back home, I had to publish the book first thing when I got there because we were done with everything that was needed to complete the book. I needed to make everything before Brandon even came back because I didn't know what he would do to me with his short-tempered self, not knowing that I was actually already late. When I got home, I found Brandon looking like he was ready to murder anything that made him angry. I knew that I had to be honest with him without waiting for him to even ask about my abomination. I had to tell him that I was in love with Andrew, but I didn't know how he would react. I know it was very wrong of me to hide such an abomination and serious thing from him and for him to find out the way he did. But I was confused and didn't know what to do. So I continued leading him on, even though my heart was slowly falling out of love with Brandon. I knew there and then that my marriage had been ruined, and there was no chance of survival in it. When I got home, I found my husband busy with his drawings. He was doing a very good job, and I was really proud of his accomplishments. I greeted him, and he told me that Chrissy was sleeping in a very cold tone. I knew I was in deep shastriskty because I didn't even notify him about my sudden departure. It was something that came to mind at the last minute. I tried apologizing to him for leaving the house and not telling him where I was going. Instead of saying that maybe it's okay, he just gave me an answer. He was as cold as ice. Weeks later, my husband suddenly decided that he was moving out of the house when I asked him why he was doing that. He told me that it was for the best, not only for him but for myself also. I didn't understand his lame and lousy excuse, so I fought with him about moving. After the whole begging and throwing tantrums that I did thinking he would change his mind, the guy continued with his plans and moved out of the house. He told me that he knew that I had cheated on him with his friend Tom, and I didn't start there because he also found out that I had cheated again 2 weeks before our wedding day. He furthered by saying that he knew about my past job and that the cafe job was just a front job for me. I didn't understand where he had taken all that information. My mind had thought that maybe Tom might have told him. But I found out that he didn't. Brandon had found all of that by himself, and his trusted friends had told me that I had gone to the private party that they had hosted, and Tom introduced me as his fun girl. I had no comeback when he said so. I opted to just humble myself and apologize, hoping that we would maybe try and work things out for the sake of our daughter. He was not having, he was so furious, even the veins were coming through his temple. I had seen Brandon angry, but the way he was angry that time made me scared and regret the things I had done. I know I should have been honest with him from the get-go, but I decided to keep everything to myself, and when the old me got unleashed, I couldn't control it, and forgot that I was no longer under the pressure of my family and I was a married woman. But what did I do? I broke the vows that I had made in front of our families, friends, and God, and there was nothing I could have done to save my marriage. I tried pleading with Brandon to at least have mercy and not take my daughter away, but the guy just told us that he was done talking and the call he would like to receive would be the call that tells him that I had signed the papers. I couldn't let him win. I couldn't go back to being the person I was before I found Brandon, so I tried fighting for what was mine. During my efforts to try to fight for my daughter, Brandon did the worst thing possible. He had gone to one of the gossip journalists and told them that my publishing company was a money scheme that frauds successful people with their money in exchange for writing a book for them and about them and their success. He even said that I was untrustworthy and an unreliable person. I couldn't believe how Brandon had destroyed my company's name, my image, and my brand. How can one person be this bitter and evil? He furthered his statement by saying that my publishing company is just a front to get more clients, but my real self was a body seller, a stripper, and a mother to the daughter that I would always take to my mother's place so I would have time to satisfy my clients. I couldn't believe that the guy I had loved and fought so hard for him to notice me as his wife would just go to journalists and tarnish my name just like that. After that, I lost so many clients to a point that I didn't even know how and where I would start and pick up the pieces that the person I had once loved had scattered. I didn't know what to do because as much as I was heartbroken at the fact that I had cheated on Bradley and he filed for a divorce. Another thing was my separation from my husband. On the other hand, the person I had trusted with my life had betrayed me in the worst way possible. Till today, I am unable to move on from what had taken place. I miss my home, my husband, and how our love used to be. I didn't take any actions regarding what I had found about Mandy, and I decided to just leave her alone and focus on my life. I believe that what was happening to me was actually karma for cheating on my husband. The pain of hearing the person who once claimed to love you destroying your name like how Brandon did. It was too deep, and it hurt more than a divorce. I want to forgive myself and forgive Mandy for what she had done and what I had done, but it wasn't easy. It felt like the more I tried to allow myself to forgive and forget, the more I was hurting myself. My divorce with Brandon hasn't been finalized, and I'm praying that he comes back to his senses and allows us to try again and fix our marriage. I wish he could give me a chance to rectify my mistakes and fix what is broken. I know I had not only broken our marriage and trust, but I had also broken the heart of the only person who had shown me genuine love and care. Tom had been there for me throughout everything that I was going through. He had helped me find myself again after my parents' passing and the ill treatment I was getting from my distant family members. My aunt was so disappointed in me when she heard the truth of why I was coming back home, and I don't blame her. I had always thought of myself as a strong and independent woman. I had built a successful business from scratch and had a loving husband, or so I thought. But when I started an intimate relationship with my husband's friend Tom, my world came crashing down. I was devastated. I felt like my whole world had been turned upside down. I lost clients, friends, and even family members who believed the lies Brandon had spread. I was left alone with nothing but the ashes of my once thriving business, but I refused to give up. I knew she had to heal and move on. I started by seeking therapy, where I learned to let go of the anger and resentment. I practiced self-care, taking long baths, reading books, and going for walks in nature. I also started rebuilding my business, but this time I did it with a newfound sense of purpose. I focused on helping other women who had been through similar experiences, using my story as a testament to resilience and strength. As I worked on myself and my business, I realized that I was no longer the same person I had been in my marriage. I was stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. I had learned to love myself, flaws and all, and to stand up for what I deserved. And as for Tom, the man who had called Brandon a loser and a simp, he became my rock, my confidant, and my partner in every sense of the word. Together, we built a new life, free from the toxicity of my past. My story is a testament to the human spirit's ability to heal and move on. I had proved that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for a brighter tomorrow. Since Brandon and I were not married under community property, I was left with nothing, and there was nothing to fight for if I were to fight. But he was gracious enough to leave me a house and a car since he had bought them under my name. One thing I would be grateful for was that he made a fair decision on making a joint custody of our daughter. She was going to stay with me and visit him wherever he would be staying. I was grateful for the love, teachings, and everything he had given me. That man loved me, and if I were to take back everything, even the time, I would take back the moments I had shared with Brandon since we had started dating. from the day he started asking me till our last day together. Even today, I still regret the mistake I had made because it was the reason that had destroyed my marriage and my family. I learned the hard way that cheating is never the answer. It only leads to pain and destruction. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you find yourself having to lie to your partner or keep a deep secret, think twice before doing it. Consider the consequences and choose the path of honesty and integrity. I want to fix things with Brandon since our divorce has been finalized. He no longer contacts me even about our daughter, but my aunt, imagine. Please help me with some advice and guides. I really need to have civilized joint custody with him. What do you think I should do?